Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the service van that we use to clean all of the Peninsula Aquatics tanks. This is a Chevy Express 2500 from 2007. I cleaned it up a ton on the inside though before we started using it, and it's still got some work to do, although I wanted to give you guys an update of this van build as it's in progress. Now, before this van, we had to carry these containers everywhere. 5 gallons of salt water is about 40 pounds. Upstairs is really rough. So now we have two 65-gallon containers up in the front of this van that can pump both fresh water and salt water. I will show you guys the vanifold a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the stuff that's back here. We do still have to use these containers sometimes to bring into customers' houses, whether it be for filling up an auto top-off or just for tanks where our 100-foot hose is not accessible. This is the standard cleaning bucket that we bring into every tank. And here are the drain buckets. Now, eventually, with this van having more room in here versus the truck, we're actually going to be carrying a large drain line so that we won't have to use these buckets nearly as much. My goal is to never have to physically carry water. So eventually these 5-gallon containers will also be phased out. Here we have all of our storage. These large guys are for clean and dirty towels. We try to keep clean towels for every single cleaning. And then we just have some test kits and some aquarium chemicals to add. We keep it pretty simple and organized back here. Let's take a step around to the vanifold now. Welcome to where the magic happens. This is where all the work gets done. Here we have two 65-gallon stand-up containers that pump out fresh water and salt water. The further one is fresh water, and this closer guy here is salt water. These are all connected by a PVC rig that I call a vanifold, and it is made so that both of the containers can be removed really easily and cleaned or just swapped out at any time. There's water direction using valves for each tank, and then I can also remove this pump really easily with two different unions. This pump is a Current USA 3170 gallons per hour, I believe, and so it really moves some water. I chose this pump because it moves the most water for power for a DC pump. It uses very little power for how much flow you can get out of it. And that's really necessary when you're running through 100 feet of tubing. All the little kinks and curls in tubing does reduce the flow. So if I'm like running up to somebody's house or have a 10-foot head height up to the tank from this truck, then the power of the pump is extremely important. You'll notice that there's a couple unused heads here. This one is going to be used for short water distances, maybe just filling up stuff next to the van. And this one is going to be used for recirculating the salt water if we ever have to mix salt water in here. So this one will be permanent. This one will probably be temporary. And as far as future plans for this, we are going to upgrade this spacing mechanism. Right now, this just makes it so that you can pull this as far as you want, and when I'm pulling the hose away, and it's not going to tear my vanifold out. But I'm going to create some nice 3D printed spacers for this to space it back to the large tank here. Now, you might be wondering, Jacob, that's 130 gallons of water right behind the driver and passenger. What are you going to do if it crashes? Well, I built this steel structure in here out of Unistrut, and it is braced at the top and bottom of the van, and the two 65-gallon tanks are strapped to it. I used a 2x4 spacer here to make up the difference between the Unistrut and the water tanks. These tanks are sitting in a waterproof tray that I built. It has 3 coats of Flex Seal on it. Flex Seal turned out to be a great product for this use. Any little drips of water that come out are just beat up right on top of it, and I can dry them out with a cloth. But really there has barely been any water in here. Now if you come closer, I actually did drill a hole here for if this gets too filled up with water, it can drain down. And eventually we will have a drain line running out of the van. But for now it just drips onto the step here, which is okay. So currently this pump is being powered by a portable battery. This is a little battery and DC inverter rig that I built from just parts from Amazon. It's housed in a battery housing. And I used to have the cover on it, but it really just got in the way after a while. So now when I want to use this pump, all I have to do is flip this switch and the pump will turn on. I flip a couple of valves and I can direct water in any way that I want. We do have to replace or recharge that battery about 2 or 3 times a week right now. So long term, this may be wired in to the actual van's battery and we will upgrade the van batteries. Each wall of the van is going to have painted waterproof plywood on it. I actually pre-mounted some mounting strips on the walls of the van for these. So this just needs to get pushed now and then it can be mounted inside. The floor already has this and that is under the rubber floor paneling that's already down. The reason we want to have waterproof coverings everywhere in the van is because so much water is moving around in there, spraying, staying humid all the time, that we just want to make sure that we have as long as possible before rest begins and that we can address it as soon as it begins. So all of these pieces will be removable so that we can service the inside of the van yearly. In addition to the wall panels, I also cleaned off and sprayed the inside of this van with a waterproof paint. I did 2 coats on it, and that should just enhance the rust protection. There was a little bit of rust remediation we had to do when this van was getting started, maybe 1 square foot worth of rust on the whole inside of the van, so it was in pretty good shape for being 13 years old. These are the mounting strips that I was referring to that the wall panel will be mounted on. I'm also thinking of doing a PVC sheet instead, so that's one of the reasons I haven't installed it yet. PVC sheets seem like they would be more protective for a longer time. We decided to get this van over another truck in order to provide a more clean working experience. A lot of pollen and dust would settle in the back of the pickup every day. We're in North Florida, and so that would sometimes get tracked into people's houses. So a van was really a better solution in that respect. It also provides us a lot more space in here versus the truck, even though it did have a crew cab and there was plenty of storage room in the back. This is all rainproof now. So the point of the van was really to create an organized and durable working environment to make sure that the tanks can get as clean as possible, and we can focus all of our attention on that. This isn't gonna work.
You're gonna fall back.
That's a wrap, guys. I'll see you next time.